And there we are live. So let's click this.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to Football Guys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
That's right. It's the Week 8 Waiver Wire show here on the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom. And first off, Bloom, I can't believe it's Week 8.
Yeah, this season is flying by. I wonder if it's just how we're stuck in the present because of how much things are changing week to week. But either way, in some ways, it's sad because it means we're that many weeks into the season, means that many weeks that we aren't going to spend together, that they're already beyond us, at least in terms of this. I'm not going to complain about the longer regular season now, because it means at least we get another week to hang out.
Right. Another week to hang out and to talk about one injured quarterbacks. First and foremost, as we get to the quarterback position, it means Dr. Gene Brammel's report. It's full report available at footballguys.com. But the Monday injury rounds, and with quarterback Bloom, it's basically looking at guys like Ryan Tannehill. We'll talk more about the guy behind him. But a high ankle sprain, wasn't he seen in a boot as well in the locker room afterwards? So he's considered probable for week 8, but it's a high ankle sprain. So get your Malik, Willis summer stock ready. Matt Ryan, we'll talk about him in that AC sprain. It doesn't matter. He'll be third string now for the Colts. So let's get into upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report. Again, this is your report, Bloom, available at footballguys.com. The quarterback position, we start with Daniel Jones, his own section, because he's a 20 to 40%er.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and put Justin Fields in here too, because both of these guys are quarterbacks that have been limited in limited offenses. And we thought, was it the coaching, new coaches, new scheme, new energy in the building? Could they be fantasy relevant quarterbacks? And we're watching this start to manifest now, right? With Daniel Jones, you see him running for over 100 yards. Again, how many people know that Daniel Jones is one of the fastest quarterbacks in the league? See, so if we had like the good old superstars competition, right, and we had the 100-yard dash among quarterbacks, Daniel Jones would be in the final heat. He would be in that race. And you see it when he gets out in the open field. Also, he's tough and fearless. He's big, so his coach is not afraid to run him. So you have that, and you have the little inklings of a functional pass offense here. Just a little bit, right? Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, maybe Kadarius Toney will play. Maybe Kenny Golladay will get healthy enough and actually care and play. But even with what they have right now, Daniel Bellinger, fractured eye socket. See, we've been doing this for a long time. Fractured eye socket. Oh my!
Don't like hearing about that one.
Anyway, my point is there's something there with Daniel Jones, and it has potential to get better. I would put Jones above Fields just because Jones has been more consistent than Fields. But what a shocker! Justin Fields and the Bears just school the Patriots in Foxborough. And you see now, I think, see some more cohesive plan for Fields' athleticism and running ability to matter. And maybe things are slowing down for him. Maybe from a mental standpoint, he feels less frantic. He feels calmer. He feels more in tune with his receivers. So in the running game is doing its job. There's rational coaching. We're going to get to this with the running backs when Khalil Herbert almost gets as much work as David Montgomery. Rational coaching, right?
Whoa, who would have thought?
Right. So these are good things. And also, if you haven't been checking out their quarterback is brutal. You have your 5 or so dedicated quarterbacks that we know we want to start every week. And then you have some quarterbacks like Kyler Murray. We're waiting, but still we're playing them every week, waiting for those outburst games. But it is rough out there at quarterback. So a player like Daniel Jones going up against Seattle this week, this was the same kind of speech we were making about Geno Smith. Geno Smith is going to remain a startable fantasy quarterback. Jones and Fields are among startable fantasy quarterbacks, and they have that extra boost as running quarterbacks. Now, we'll see with Fields. His test this week is a little tougher against Dallas. But we thought the Patriots, after what they did to Jacoby Brissett, after what they did to a shorthanded Jared Goff, we thought they would be a stiff test, and they weren't.
Jimmy Garoppolo and Andy Dalton are kind of there in the middle. 5 to 10%
Yeah.
for Garoppolo, 3 to 5% for Dalton. And I can't tell you how many times I got texts this weekend from people like, why did they get Christian McCaffrey if they're still going to have Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yeah. And we'll see. But the headline here with Garoppolo is that fearsome San Francisco defense is not so fearsome. What did the Chiefs put up on them? 44 points. So that being the case, now you have more potential pass-heavy game scripts. And this, of course, this isn't a waiver wire issue, but this ripples through to the value of everybody in this offense. Now they're going to go up against the Rams this week. We'll see these two teams when they get together. The trends, etc., don't matter. But Garoppolo, again, it's rough out there at quarterback. I could see Garoppolo, maybe not in this matchup, but in other matchups, as a viable starting quarterback, especially if this defense continues to be easy to solve. Dalton, I don't know what to do. And Cecil, I'll toss it back to you for some insight here because it's Dennis Allen, right?
Oh, God.
How we have to psychoanalyze these coaches. We have to get inside the head of the coach. Annapolis and walks on the beach or something. But you also see with Dennis Allen, who, newsflash, sees around these parts in New Orleans, not a lot of respect, not a lot of deference, not a lot of, Dennis Allen, let's trust him. Let's defer to him. So which way is he going to go with this? Because it seemed like Andy Dalton was the safer quarterback with the ball. And then he goes out and throws 4 touchdowns to the offense and 2 to the defense. That's a Jameis Winston result. It's great for fantasy, but it's not great if you're looking at keeping games low scoring or otherwise, making things about your defense, making things about Alvin Kamara, and a safe game with Taysom Hill touching the ball about 10 times. So I don't know. I put Andy Dalton above Jameis Winston simply because I think that if we had to guess who's going to start at quarterback this week for New Orleans against Vegas, and that's the other thing, it's a good matchup against the Raiders. Davis Mills had a good game against the Raiders last week. I'm going to guess it's Dalton. But if it was announced that Winston would be the starter, we'd flip these guys because Winston's a 1%er. So you have a potential share of a Saints pass offense, which, again, has not been really all hands on deck very often this year. And, of course, you also have that complicating factor of Taysom Hill in those 10 snaps. But this has been a productive offense the last few weeks, an offense that if you're scuffling at quarterback, and you also might be looking to cover Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert this week. So Saints quarterback is a viable play. We're just not sure who it is yet.
Yeah, go Tecmo Bowl on their behinds. Sorry, Joe. 1%ers abound. Sam Ellinger. Some people would say, why isn't he higher, Bloom? So we can talk about that.
Sure.
Taylor Heineke, Davis Mills, PJ Walker. You mentioned Winston. Rippon's probably not going to play in London, but whatever. And then there's Malik Willis, much more interesting. So I think Ellinger and Willis. Let's talk about those young guys and everybody else who we've kind of brushed over before.
Well, again, the revolving door of quarterbacks, and we have a lot of stuff to keep up with here. Sam Ellinger, you asked why not higher. I think that he's going to be
he's a runner.
He is a runner. He's a gamer. See, if there's been a quarterback, but they've been saying about him since he was at Texas, right? I mean, that was a really good way to sum up. This is a point where we could talk about scout speak, right? We could talk about things you learn when you're on the All-Star Game road trip, at the Shrine Game, at the Senior Bowl, Texas versus the Nation back in the day. What does a gamer mean? It means that he has subpar tools.
Yes, limited.
But he's going to lay everything out there for his team. He's going to be a leader. And when you have that one play you have to make, he's not. Here's what Sam Ellinger is going to not do: throw the ball away on 4th down, right? Or otherwise concede anything to the defense. But you're right, he's a runner. The reason that Ellinger's not higher is because I think that his job is going to be, it's Marcus Mariota, right? Throw the ball 15 or 20 times, hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor a lot. And I don't expect that. But we'll see, because this Colts offense has had trouble finding an identity. And see, I was honestly shocked that not just Matt Ryan's benched for this week, not just Matt Ryan's hurt, but they are willing to come out and say he's not going to be the starter again. He's not going to be the starter again, which we'll see. I mean, it's been said before, and then that player's back in, not because of injury. But this is interesting. You wonder what Frank Reich's going through and what he has gone through for him to pull the plug on Matt Ryan this early in the season.
That sounds like a Jim Irsay thing. It sounds like Irsay's sick of Frank Reich propping up the weekend at Bernie's with his quarterback.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it seems like Ursay,
Right.
with the whiskey burps or whatever, and he made this call.
That's
He
a
made this
good
call.
fantasy
Hey, I
team name.
know. I'll tell you off air, Bloom, but I know somebody that works for a team that told me our guy at the top, we had to always joke. There was a joke in the building. If we didn't bring something to him before noon, he's going to be hammered.
Yeah.
So yeah. Maybe 12:01. Maybe that phone rings for Frank Reich. Like, hey, get rid of him, because that's pretty nasty, dude. They had the shoulder thing. They could have
Yeah.
easily said like, oh man, wait. We
Let's
love him,
see.
but
Yeah.
he's so hurt, and then they just keep saying he's hurt. No, they publicly did this for a reason.
Yeah. So you're right. It definitely is a remarkable change from not just how the Colts quarterback situations have been handled, but just the NFL quarterback situation. So you're right, Cease, that it seems to lead to an idea that something came from down high with Matt Ryan, whose arm was shot and whatever. His arm has never really been that great. So that gets us Ellinger. Taylor Heineke was rough. It was really rough at first, but he found his way. He's a good desperation play. Davis Mills this week against Tennessee, if you got to play him again. We're talking about Herbert and Mahomes bye-week coverage. PJ Walker, he's not placing Tampa this week. He's going to face Atlanta, whose secondary is depleted. And Joe Burrow and Cincinnati just put on a show against them. And then we'll see about James Winston. We had Bailey Zappi. Another one, Cease. There's another one where you got to wonder what's going on here. What's going on? Mac Jones comes out and plays basically part of the first quarter and then doesn't play again.
I'll quote Kevin Hart. He wasn't ready. He wasn't ready, and he's not that good anyway.
Right. So why doesn't Bill Belichick just say that? And I get it. Some of this could be that Bill Belichick just wants to be totally inscrutable and isn't going to tell you anything he doesn't have to tell you. But at the same time, as Albert Breer pointed out, you'd like to see him have Mac Jones back, right? So this is a good moment during this quarterback segment, Cease, to talk about the psychology and the very thorny issues of how you as a coach talk about your starting quarterback or talk about your quarterback situation. And Bill Belichick would not commit to Mac Jones being the starter. When they asked him, is he the starter when healthy? That's a hypothetical question. Not really. Actually, it's pretty clear that at some point in the future he will be healthy.
Right.
So it's not really hypothetical. And if he was benched because he wasn't ready physically, then that would have been really easy to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you gain? What competitive advantage do you gain by not revealing that? So we have to at least be open to the idea of Bailey Zappi taking over at some point. And look, this is the NFL, and folks need to understand this because, Cease, when Bailey Zappi looked pretty good against Detroit, and I put out there, could there be a quarterback controversy? Maybe long term. Oh, come on. You took a first-round quarterback and then one game. Well, we have to be open to this stuff. What seems like a remote possibility, give it a week. Give it a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden it's reality. So that's just a good point to bring that up. And then your two quarterback superflex leagues, just doing a little house cleaning here again. Maybe Brett Rippon, maybe not. They're buys next week. Why not just let Russell Wilson rest? Malik Willis may get a start. They tried to hand off the ball to him and they fumbled, but we'll see. It's Malik Willis who's running quarterback. So if you had to plug somebody in, it's Houston. If he's the starter, you could do something with him.
Why won't they sit Russ again? Because Nathaniel Hackett won't tell him no. I'm actually shocked he didn't play this week.
Every player wants to play when they're hurt.
Well, what happens? I'm not saying Nathaniel Hackett doesn't have a spine, but what happens when someone has to tell that alpha no? You have to have that coach that'll do that. And well, I don't think the Broncos do. It is a Broncos show.
What's that? Diego Lopez. What's up, Diego? Says he's going to get traded to the 49ers. Mac Jones to the 49ers.
Ah, there you go.
They'll have Mac Jones and Trey Lance, and neither of them would be the starter next year.
There's buzz about the 49ers plan at quarterback for next year, but I don't know
if you've been listening.
Might be changing. It might be changing.
Might be changing.
Yeah, it might be changing.
Wow.
Maybe. We'll see.
That's what I think we're going to talk about after the show.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's get to the running back position. And oh man, I did pour out my nitro cold brew, unpaid endorsement, Bloom. But I did pour it out, and it was for Breece Hall. My God, that sucks. Sometimes this game just guts you. And Brees Hall, ACL and meniscus tear, it is season ending. Here comes James Robinson. Yesterday had some very significant news. Then the Brees Hall thing, James Robinson thing, the Matt Ryan thing. Like, again, it was just that type of day. But that's the one we're all looking at. Brees Hall, ACL tear. And it just sucks. It's terrible. Bloom.
Yeah.
We get to your upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report. It is available at footballguys.com. Let's start with the running back positions that you have at the top. And there's the Gus Bus 50+%, because sometimes the throwback is sometimes all you got.
Yeah. And again, why 50+%? Not just that he was back and he scored 2 touchdowns and 62 yards on 16 carries, which is solid, not great. It's because the team went to have 44 rushes to 16 pass attempts in the game. So Gus Edwards is so important to this team that they changed their offensive game plan when he was back. And I actually think it's sound. I think that if they kept going with offense they had first 4 or 5 weeks, Lamar Jackson's going to get hurt. You're begging for it. You can't leave him exposed like that, partially because he's a gamer. He's a gamer with talent, that he's not going to preserve himself. He's going to try to make a play for the team. So you have Gus Edwards, and J.K. Dobbins going to be back week 12-ish, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it goes when he comes back. Kenyon Drake, 11 carries for 5 yards. Okay, well, I don't know what happened to Kenyon Drake last week in week 6. I have no idea how he found what he found, but he lost it again. And Justice Hill, who's got that acceleration and that burst, the fumble that almost cost them the game. So it's Gus Edwards' backfield. That makes it really easy. And see something else about the waiver wire trends this year. If you were conservative, if you were deliberate, and you use a lot of restraint in those first 3 or 4 weeks, now you're seeing the quality. This is a weird year because usually we say push those chips in early, because the earlier you get your waiver wire pickups, the more weeks you get to take advantage of having them on your roster. This year has been a year that has favored being deliberate, because I do think that you see often when we're making a 50+% play explanation, we're saying, well, he's probably not available in your league, check Yahoo public league percentages. But Gus Edwards is out there in a lot of leagues. I don't know, a lot of people were preemptively picking him up. Remember, he wasn't even activated from the PUP until Saturday, I think. So this is one where, yeah, if you've been keeping that powder dry, it's time to load it and shoot your shot with Gus Edwards, who's going to be at least a running back 2 going forward. We'll get to watch him Thursday night against Tampa.
Get on the Gus bus and let's load it up. Benjamin is 12 to 25%. There's Dante Foreman, 12 to 25%. We'll talk about that Carolina backfield because Chuba's way down, Bloom. But let's talk about Foreman. Let's throw in Michael Carter with the James Robinson news and Antonio Gibson. So we've got 12 to 25% and 10 to 20% for these 4 backs. And, Chuba is floating around there as well, but he's further down.
He is, because he's got an ankle injury. And that's really the main reason there's separation there. And we can throw in Khalil Herbert here too as a 12 to 25%er. And again, sometimes I'll say the percentages are mostly to rank players within tiers, across positions. In this case, I see that steep drop off from Gus Edwards to these guys because there's just still uncertainty. And you wonder what the best case scenario is outside of injury upside for these players. With Eno Benjamin, we finally saw him have a really good game, really patient as a runner. Arizona's offense is going to be better with DeAndre Hopkins. And yes, James Conner could be back this week to face Minnesota, the Denny Green Bowl. But really, you really think James Conner is going to stay healthy? Benjamin hasn't gotten his last start this year. And he had to share with Keontae Ingram, who we'll talk about, but Benjamin showed that he can hang. So the partial backfields. Dante Foreman, when Chuba Hubbard's healthy, Dante Foreman's going to have company in the backfield. You also just have the feeling that that's going to be the high watermark for the Panthers offense this year. And we'll see. It's Atlanta this week, so maybe I shouldn't speak so hastily. And certainly in projections this week, Dante Foreman's going to be a top 15, top 20 running back, especially if Chuba Hubbard isn't going to play. But so you have staying power, and the 12 to 25%, the 10 to 20% for these guys, it signifies like, don't empty your wallet for these guys. I mean, we could go look back and say maybe you should have if there's an injury or otherwise they take control of these backfields. And that's where we get to Khalil Herbert. And the good news about Khalil Herbert is he had 12 carries to Dave Montgomery's 15. and played most of the last 3 quarters. It seemed like during the game, it was a true hot hand approach. And if you're honestly doing hot hand, Herbert is going to be the hot hand more often, scored on a 25-yard screen pass. You don't say that very often. So that shows you what Herbert brings to the table. Now, again, if Montgomery gets hurt, or maybe it's just one of those situations where this team eventually just says, well, Montgomery's not going to be with the team next year. Herbert's the future. It's his backfield now. Then maybe Herbert should be a 50-plus percenter if he's out there. And he might be out there. I think it was 54% in Yahoo leagues. And James Robinson would be in this tier too. And Michael Carter, James Robinson would be in the 10 to 20% tier. I'm not sure who you'd rather have right now, Cecil. Would you rather have James Robinson or Michael Carter?
Probably Robinson if it was more touchdown heavy scoring, and probably Carter if it was PPR. Because I'll assume rational coaching that Carter would be the receiving back and that Robinson would get the high value touches near the goal line.
Right. And all things being equal, I'd say Robinson over Carter. But again, neither of them are break the bank guys, even though the Jets are thinking like a playoff team.
I loved it, dude. I loved it.
Yeah, it's great. They should keep this going. And I do think James Robinson fits more in what they want to do on offense now. It's funny, you pay all this money to Corey Davis, who's banged up. You take Garrett Wilson high. You take Elijah Moore, and you're going to be a run-heavy offense. But that's what works, especially with Zach Wilson and a defense that is really coming alive and controlling games. So, again, maybe the bottom line here is don't go too hard for any of these guys if they're out there. But Michael Carter was a 50-plus percenter before that trade, and it's a good trade, a 6th-round pick. And James Robinson's going to be a restricted free agent next year, but they're going to get Breece Hall back next year, hopefully. Let me get to Antonio Gibson, and maybe there's rational coaching here after all.
With Riverboat Ron?
Right? Well, because, Brian Robinson, I'm writing like Mike Tyson's Punch Out, or the original Punch Out, because I was playing it before Mike Tyson had anything to do with it. See, in the arcade, right? When you go in, I could beat Glass Joe, and that was about it. Body blow, body blow, body blow, body blow. That's Brian Robinson, right? And then you have Antonio Gibson with that change of pace. He can hit the knockout punch with his speed, and going all the way back to Memphis, and he wasn't that refined. So when you watch Antonio Gibson back in Memphis, what you saw was a running back body type who could do some things as a receiver, running routes, making plays on the ball in the air, but he wasn't refined. If you were evaluating him simply as a wide receiver, he wasn't refined enough to be a wide receiver, but he had some wide receiver skills for a running back. And that's what you saw when he made that toe tap touchdown in the back of the end zone this week. And that's what you want, right? You want him to get 8, 10, 12 carries a week. You want him to have the ball a few times in the passing game, hopefully with a runway, with a chance and space to get up to speed. And now you have a fantasy relevant player. Now you have a player that is worth plugging in as a flex. You still have Brian Robinson injury upside here. And as much as I like J.D. McKissick, I think what you saw when there was that pick 6 and Devondre Campbell looked like, the giant against the like an J.D. McKissick looked like an Ewok or something, like a hobbit trying to compete for that ball in the air. And it was Taylor Heineke's mistake to throw that ball that late. But I think that Antonio Gibson can do some of the same things as J.D. McKissick, but offer more upside. And I think they can see that. I think you're seeing McKissick's role shrink, and you're seeing Gibson get more value. And it, again, as the world turns, Cease, we're coming out of week 7. Washington had a good game. Chicago had a good game. New England, what happened? Green Bay, what happened? It's difficult to keep up with this, but if Washington continues to be a competitive team with Taylor Heineke, then now this backfield has a lot more intrigue in fantasy.
Yeah, now the whole team has a lot more intrigue. And Bloom, you mentioned being reserved in the waiver wire. How many weeks did we go where the waiver wire was like, this is not a great week? And now, like, it's, hey, look at that. Look at over there. I like it. I like what I'm seeing at the running back list further down because it's Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah. Some segues just write themselves, Bloom.
Sure.
He's a 5 to 10%er as long as he stays the starter, and they could actually use him a little bit more. I'm just complaining, Bloom. But I do love me some Isaiah Pacheco. And 1%ers, Tyler Algier, Dontrell Hilliard, Chuba Hubbard, Keontae Ingram. I love him. Samaje Perine and Zamir White. 1.5%. 100%.
Going to be that time, Cease. It's going to be that time that we talk about backup running backs on the waiver wire. And you're always thinking about best case scenario and can this player change the destiny of my team? Because let's take the pedestrian 1% pickups. Okay, Tyler Algier, they're going to run the ball 30 times a game no matter what. Algier is going to get a touchdown. He's not that efficient of a runner. It's Carolina this week. Okay, if you need a plug-in, Algier's there. Chuba Hubbard. And when I'm worried about Chuba Hubbard, he looked good. I don't know what happened to the Panthers running game all of a sudden, but he's got that ankle injury. And I'm afraid that by the time he comes back, the Panthers just might back to be an atrocious offense, an offense that we don't really expect much to happen in. So I'm not that excited to pick him up. Maybe I'm underplaying his value. And Keontae Ingram is a little bit of both as far as an injury upside backup and someone with temporary value. Because if James Conner's back this week, Keontae Ingram goes back to being the third string back. We probably don't see him. But again, how long will James Conner stay healthy? Keontae Ingram, the Cardinals showed that if it is a Benjamin Ingram backfield, then Ingram's going to get a good amount of work, including goal line work, including some work in the passing game. He looked really good on his 24-yard catch and run. So there's something there. Now let's talk about backups. And as we get further into the bye week gauntlet, and you've had a lot of bye weeks in the rearview mirror, then we're going to really beat the drum about backup running backs. This is what you want to have on your bench, backup running backs. And I want to highlight 3 this week to talk about how we evaluate which backup running backs we want to carry. And again, I see it as 4 prongs. Do we have clarity on the backup? How good is the backup? How good is the situation? Is there anything that leads us that maybe they're getting closer on the field? Now, Zamir White, let's start there. Josh Jacobs, revelation. We were drafting today. Josh Jacobs is a first-round pick.
Oh, right? Yeah, easily.
First-round fantasy pick because it's how he's playing, but it's also a commitment.
Which is surprising for Josh McDaniels letting you do it.
Yeah, and I mean, it shows he's evolved, right? And it shows what every head coach or every person in their life, there's life lessons take out of this, right? That just because that's what worked then, you should be open to look around what you're at now, what's going to work now. And they didn't go with Josh Jacobs at first, but when they did, the team started winning. And the other thing about this is too, like we say, going into a bye, coming out of a bye, they'll make adjustments. There is no adjustment. Still the Josh Jacobs offense. The adjustment is leave everything exactly the same. But you're playing with fire when you're having Josh Jacobs touch the ball 25, 30 times a game. And is he going to hold up? Is he really going to hold up? Oh, man. I love Josh Jacobs, love his game, but Zamir White, and the other part of this is they're running the ball really successfully. And Zamir White can do a pretty good Josh Jacobs impression as far as power, burst, tenacity, running inside. So that's why we're talking about him. And that's why we're talking about Dontrell Hilliard, too. Because, again, you really want to keep giving Derrick Henry 30 carries a game? Really? So you haven't learned anything? You're probably going to win the division at this rate. So I just think that we have to look at who's behind Henry, and it's Dontrell Hilliard. He was pretty good splitting the backfield with Dante Foreman last year. And Hilliard also gives you that desperation play value in the passing game. Remember, he had a 2-touchdown game already this year, caught a touchdown in another game. And then just got to mention Samaje Perine because, well, Joe Mixon gets dinged up, but also this is a really good offense. So this is that prong that is, how good is the offense? Right. This is one of the best offenses in the league. You plug Samaje Perine in, he's going to give you the 12 to 18 points that Joe Mixon's been giving you. So be thinking about this when you're looking at that last spot on your bench, because in any given week, some running back, Gus Edwards was on what percentage of rosters like 3 weeks ago? Now, Gus Edwards is the top waiver wire pickup. It's going to keep happening.
It's going to keep happening. And look at Jamie, our guy here.
Yeah.
Never been on live. This is my live chat comment. Jamie, welcome. This is how we get it, Bloom, because we have so many listeners. We're like, hey, if you're missing out, if you're wondering, like, what are they talking about? Just watch us.
Yeah.
And you're on YouTube.
Defeating productivity everywhere. When I think of that, Cease, I think of a shout out to David Dodds, to our man David Dodds, and how we were all in solidarity that, maybe we're not starting a revolution here, Cease, but we're chipping away at productivity, and that's a good thing.
All right, that is a good thing. Relax, unbutton your top button, says Diego.
Cease, there was a time.
Enjoy the Audible.
Cease, there was a time because you're a country music guy, right?
Remember,
take this job and shove it.
Yeah.
I ain't working here no more. Yeah. So, there was a time that there was a good stretch of that, like a little anti-work, anti-job, anti-boss
Anti-establishment.
Yeah, we're down with that.
Yeah, yes, we are. What is the old? Now you got me on the old country song kick, Bloom.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror. I get better looking each day.
I love it.
Yeah.
We need to cut a country album.
Yeah, there you go. I already have a country song. I gave it to Nick Ferguson, and because he's got buddies on like Smash Mouth and everything. I was like, tell Smash Mouth to put a fiddle on, and then they'll start selling records because country people will buy anything. But I was like, no, she took the high road and I took the road.
Right. She got the gold mine. I got the shaft.
Exactly. It's like a friends in low places type of new, spin. So that's my $1 million idea, and I gave it to my buddy to give to his buddy, and
we'll wait.
Whatever. Go write your country.
We're still waiting.
Go write your country songs. Go talk about wide receivers. Yeah. We got through all the running backs. So to the wide receiver position, and that means Dr. Gene Brammel's injury report. Monday injury rounds available at footballguys.com. And DK Metcalf week to week, but he's doubtful for week 8. Left knee injury. Actually did get some kind of good news, I guess. With DK Metcalf, right high ankle sprain for Mike Williams. He's got a bye this week. So there you go. So if you want the full injury report, it's the Monday injury rounds. It's available at footballguys.com. So wide receivers, Bloom. Wide receiver. And top one for you, Tyler Boyd and DJ Moore and Wan'Dale Robinson. Let's throw in Curtis Samuel and talk about all those guys at the top.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys may not be out there, but being thorough here. And again, 15-30% means these aren't necessarily guys that are going to change your season. With Tyler Boyd, it's the quality of the offense. And now you see his demonstrated weekly ceiling, 155 and a touchdown. So you might be leaving that on your bench in any given week. That changes the decision matrix of whether to play Tyler Boyd, and certainly makes him somebody that shouldn't be on the waiver wire in any league, no matter how short the benches are. DJ Moore, signs of life with PJ Walker. I do still think this is going to be like, that old film Awakenings, Robin Williams, Robert De Niro, about the patients, like they had some experimental drug that brought them back like from a catatonic state to being in this world for a couple of weeks, and then they went back to being catatonic. That's the Panthers offense, right? Yeah. That's DJ Moore's fantasy value, maybe, or maybe PJ Walker has found something, but it's enough to make sure to pick him back up if he was spite dropped. And then we have the sabotage drop, we have the spite drop that goes along with Chuck D. And Wan'Dale Robinson, his snaps went up, his targets went up, catches went up. Not as many big plays, but you're going to see him keeping this offense on schedule with a pretty steady role in this passing game for the 6-1 New York Giants. Curtis Samuel, we hadn't really seen a good track record of Samuel with Taylor Heineke, but we did see this week him getting those short passes, getting some touches out of the backfield, part of this offense, which again is back on the rise. So if he was dropped after he had his worst week of the season, after it seemed like all hope was lost on a national game against Chicago, now there's value there for Washington, and hopefully soon the team will get sold.
Nah, we'll see. We shall see. You know what makes me happy, Bloom? Seeing our chat room and seeing all of our people in the chat room, and then seeing Joe Everett pop in our chat room. Joe's like cool, talented, knowledgeable. Like, we should all be more like Joe. All right, there you go. Shout out to Joe Everett. Shout out to the next wide receivers up, and it's a little bit further down. So 3 to 5% for Khalil Shakir and Josh Palmer. And again, you got the Chargers on a bye. And then let's talk about Marquise Goodwin, the 1%er. Why isn't that more? Malik Hardman, stop trying to make him a thing, but it's 1%er, so I'll be down with the 1%er thing. My buddy Khalif Raymond, it's a cool dude, 1%er. Darius Slayton, 1%er there as well. So yeah, let's get to it. And the Goodwin thing, it was interesting, Bloom, because I think it written in the Newswire. I was like, you're going to look at D. Eskridge. And it was Marquise Goodwin who got that work. So, okay, not D. Eskridge, but Marquise Goodwin instead.
Yeah. Starting with 3-5%ers, Josh Palmer's on bye, but with Mike Williams, Mike Williams is going to miss at least week 9. And Mike Williams' injury, there was a point in the afternoon you're watching the down goes Breece Hall, down goes Mike Williams, down goes J.C. Jackson. And you're thinking, it's depressing. But Mike Williams' injury, where it looked like it might be season ending, the way his leg bent, 2 to 5 weeks. Okay, I mean that's one of those time frames that is okay. You're just making something up, really. It's like when he's going to be ready, he's going to be ready, and hopefully he's not back too early. There's going to be a window there for Josh Palmer. Who knows when Keenan Allen's going to be ready, right? Keenan Allen, and we have one more week. We got to bye, so hopefully week 9 he comes out of the bye and he's ready. But either way, Josh Palmer, who hasn't exactly been that efficient or performed that well this year, still targets equal value. And then Khalil Shakir, and this is one of those points where if you listen to the show and you don't just look at the numbers on the waiver wire report, you'll know he's a 35%er because I just don't think you need to pay that much for him. He's coming out of a bye, and he's not necessarily a player you're going to be able to use this week, but we talk about this a lot. Khalil Shakir, and I was on WGR with Bulldog and Mike Shope, and I said, you can't keep Khalil Shakir off the field for much longer. And I think going out of the bye also sees that's when adjustments get made. So Khalil Shakir, if there's one thing you take away from this waiver wire show, it is try to find a way to get Khalil Shakir on your roster if you can. It won't cost much. He should be out there, and he's the kind of player that can change your season at the wide receiver position. We get to the 1%ers. McCole Hardman, he scored 3 touchdowns. I mean, the play was working. Probably it's one of those things they saw on film against San Francisco and thought this is going to work. They bite on everything. Right. And they went to it 3 times. Maybe that's going to happen again. Maybe there's another team that can identify that. And he still had 3 other catches in the game. Khalif Raymond, it's just going to come down to Josh Reynolds' practice report status. I do think we're going to see, and also I don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown, they're saying he didn't have a concussion. So now we have this new regime, thanks to Miami, and Tua Tagovailoa, although it should help with player safety, that if a player stumbles, if this independent spotter says, yeah, they had trouble getting up, they're not coming back in the game.
Yeah.
Period.
And guys will be dismayed by it, but yeah, it's protecting you from you, basically, because guys will want to play, and well, hell, coaches and training staffs will have reasons for them to want to play. So yeah, somewhat to protect them from themselves, from the team. Okay, that's just what we're going to deal with.
So, but that also affects the potential for Khalif Raymond and his opportunity this week against Miami. Darius Slayton caught that long touchdown. Just hey, they have deep chemistry. They have deep chemistry going back to Daniel Jones and Darius Slayton. I don't know if I think Slayton was Jones was a second-year player that year. But my point is, there's deep ball chemistry there. That's all it takes, like it did last week for Slayton to make your week. And let's talk a little bit about Marquise Goodwin. Because there have been a couple of different times in Marquise Goodwin's career, started out with the Bills, that it looked like he was maybe going to break through, that he wasn't going to be just a speed receiver who could stretch the field and have this individual role. And Marquise Goodwin's a real interesting dude out at UT. I know he has a special needs sister that he's basically taken care of or has been like real close to him for his whole life. He almost made the Olympic team as a long jumper. You know, you'll hear about sprinters sometimes, Willie Galt, like you'll hear about the sprinters, but in the long jump, you know, and he's floated around, but I don't think G. Eskridge is ready. I think you watch D. Eskridge and say, give it time. I mean, he really had a lost rookie year. Eventually we may see something with D. Eskridge. So DK Metcalf, it's Pete Carroll. I mean, you know, here's who Cease, is it good or bad if Pete Carroll visits you on your deathbed? Because if he visits you on your deathbed, he's gonna be like, everything's gonna be fine. You're gonna be back home with your wife and kids, and we're gonna be golfing again, and that's maybe what you need when you're on your deathbed, right?
Right.
But at the same time, like, give it to me straight, Doc. Well, he's not gonna do that. That's not what Pete Carroll's gonna do. No. So when Pete Carroll's like, well, it's not, and we got some good news, it's not that bad. DK actually even wants to practice. So it makes you think, well, maybe he'll be back in a week or two. But then again, it's a patellar tendon injury, and knees are tricky. And DK Metcalf, going back to Ole Miss, part of the reason DK Metcalf, you could look at DK Metcalf and say, how did this dude fall the second round? How could you look at this dude and watch him and think, yeah, he's not a first-round pick? He got hurt a lot. I mean, I think he missed most of his last year, but with a neck issue, right? Neck or back issue. So it's DK Metcalf. I mean, we don't usually think of these big receivers as the sports car types where if just any little thing is off, it's going to keep them, but we don't know that for sure. So that's another aspect of Marquise Goodwin, because Geno Smith's making this offense go well. Kenneth Walker, oh my. So it's there. And if Marquise Goodwin is that deep ball target, along with Tyler Lockett, there is a lot of potential there. And I'm afraid with DK Metcalf, we might be in one of those situations where we don't really know when he's going to come back, and it's going to be really difficult to read it. Hopefully it's just a week or two, but if it's not, then maybe Marquise Goodwin should be more than 1%er.
DK's a Range Rover. Like,
there you go.
Luxury. He's got some speed to it. Breaks down all the time.
Right. You take him on safari.
Yeah. Don't better have your toolkit ready. I loved my Range Rover, like love, and I had one of the 90s ones, which weren't sporty, but they could go anywhere. And that thing, I could go anywhere in that thing. But it was broke down all the time, like all the time. So, and everything's expensive for a Range Rover.
Right.
All right. Super quick, Bloom, before we get to tight ends. Super quick.
Yeah.
We've been chatty today, but we're fine.
It's gonna be like it.
When is the time? Because we did get some news on Odell Beckham Jr.
Mm.
We're talking about the Chargers, right? And we admire the Jets so much and what they did with the James Robinson move. If you're the Chargers and you've got, hey, Williams a little banged out, hey, Keenan and Palmer's not playing as well as he could, why not go get Odell?
Sure.
Now he won't be ready till December. So
Right.
we're like at the end-ish of October here. You know, when is that time? Couple more weeks?
Yeah, it's at least a couple more
in there.
weeks. It's at least a couple more weeks because we're still on the bye week gauntlet. And you're oftentimes, and maybe not this week, but next week, you pick up Odell Beckham and you may have to drop in a week or two whenever the bye week crunch gets you. There's only 2 teams on bye this week. And one of them, Kansas City, is a team that was just mentioned. And that was one of the more exciting things about Odell Beckham's future range of outcomes. Because if he went back to the Rams, I'm not interested. If he goes to Kansas City, I'm kind of interested, although Juju Smith-Schuster and Patrick Mahomes are trying to riff on those extended plays. Now the Chargers, that's definitely on the upside, depending on how these things go with these wide receivers. But I just think that it's a combination of the bye week gauntlet and the churn. We're seeing a lot of churn now. We're seeing a lot of injuries. We're seeing a lot of players rise and fall in values. We're seeing offenses, now that we're up to week 8 now, offenses starting to come into focus. Things are starting to fall into place. Players we thought that weren't going to have consistent value might have consistent value. So there's just too many question marks right now. Now in a dynasty league, go check if Odell Beckham's out there. Dynasty, I'm willing to hold him because he's not even close to done. I mean, we're talking about one of the best wide receivers of this era. He's not going to just bow out. He's not going to turn to dust like Julio Jones and AJ Green have lately. I think he still has some good football left in him.
Good football abounds as we move on to the tight end position. And that means we got to go to Dr. Gene Brammel's Monday Injury Rounds report. It's available at footballguys.com. The David Njoku, the high ankle sprain, man, that pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because tight end is so brutal. And now he's out for week 8. And Njoku had been coming through. They'd been using him. I feel like Njoku's like the tight end version of Josh Jacobs. Like, we knew it was there, and then they use him right, and you're like, see, it's there, like we said, and now he's hurt. So anyway, you want the full injury report, you go to footballguys.com, and you check us out. So tight ends to your upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report, Bloom, is like the following: 15 to 30% for Dawson Knox and Dalton Schultz. So let's talk about those two at the top.
Dalton Schultz back. Peyton Hendershot got the touchdown, but that's good in that's where Dak Prescott was looking on one of his chances to score, the only touchdown pass he threw in that game. So Dalton Schultz, he's going to be prominent in Dak Prescott's progressions, and he fits in what this team wants to do with Dak Prescott at quarterback. So he's back. He's not back quite to the value he was when this offense was really high flying, but he's back to a startable fantasy tight end. Assuming that knee holds up, watch practice reports because he did check out for a couple of plays, I think. And it was the right knee, the one he's been having problems with. And Dalton Schultz, who has been banged up this year, was at Old Miss when DK Metcalf was there, also banged up. But he's healthy now. Coming out of the bye, he's going to be even healthier. He's attached to Josh Allen. This is simple. See if he was dropped in a bye week crunch scenario. And I think that even if he's not truly an every week fantasy starting tight end where every week he gives you a good start, the good weeks are going to make up for the down weeks. And if you've been struggling at tight end, if you just lost David Njoku, Knox could be there for you.
Could be there for you, and that's what we are here for you. So 5 to 10% Hayden Hurst, Irv Smith, could use him a little more. And let's throw in Harrison Bryant as well with the Njoku injury. And Bryant's got talent. And now he's got maybe some more opportunity. 3 to 5% this week.
Yeah. Irv Smith, if you're looking for somebody to cover Travis Kelce this week or Gerald Everett, Yeah, Gerald Everett. And if Gerald Everett is out there and you have a problem at tight end, if someone drops him because of the bye week crunch, go for it. Irv Smith's probably the number one guy to pick up if Schultz and Knox are not out there. And by the way, I always want to mention Ertz. I love that tight end is all these consonant names. It just kind of speaks to the tradition. By the way, can I share something exciting, Cease?
What's that?
I mean, it's booked next week on the couch. Tyler Dunn. He's got a new book out about tight ends.
Very good.
He took a year, and it was tight end day this weekend, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a book out. It's really cool. It's called The Blood and Guts: How Tight Ends Save Football. So we're gonna talk about a lot of cool stuff. I'm excited. So while we're on the tight end subject, I got to bring that up.
And close that tab so it doesn't slow down your internet.
Sorry. I wanted to make sure I got the name of the book right for Tyler.
I could tell when you open up a tab. I was like, oh God, please, New Orleans, please.
I'm doing a high wire act here. It's a trapeze act. So just don't drop me. So you have
your last name Grayson?
The Walendas, the Flying Walendas. Arizona, that's the opponent. Arizona, did you notice last week Jawan Johnson? How many people won their matchup because they put in Jawan Johnson last week? They needed a tight end. So you have Arizona, the opponent there. They've been very generous to tight ends coming out of the bye. Like you said, maybe use a little more Irv Smith. Hayden Hurst, everybody's cup got full for the Bengals pass offense last week. I don't know how often that's going to happen again, but any given week, Hurst can give you 10, 12 points, either via 3 catches and a touchdown, or last week, 6 catches for like 48 yards or something like that. Harrison Bryant, I feel like I always got to say Matt Waldman favorite. And he's got game. He's good. He's a good receiving tight end. David Njoku goes down. Pharaoh Brown, who they picked up, who was involved in the offense, he also goes down. And it's the Harrison Bryant show going up against Cincinnati and Hayden Hurst. So he's another one for these 1 week pickups who could be pickups for longer, depending on David Njoku and how his ankle recovers.
Aha. All right. How many tight ends we got left?
We got 1%ers. We got Will Dissly.
Greg Dulcich. Yeah. We mentioned Jawan Johnson already. That's why my brain was like, wait a second.
K-Dot and right.
K-Dot and 1%er.
So, I mean, these are, again, your 1 week fill-ins for Travis Kelce if those other guys are not available.
Where's Jake Ferguson at? One of those Cowboys tight ends. All right, Bloom. It is that time where you get to let it off your chest and you get to have what we call audience participation. And there is a certain player, he's big, he plays tight end, and he plays in Atlanta, that a lot of people want to know where Sigmund Bloom is on this guy now. So you're going to scare people. People might be concerned about you, but tell them it's okay. Yeah. I'm listening to the Audible. And then maybe you should tell them to listen to the Audible, right? Then like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a vid. Like, tell them that. Tell them to join us in this fun because, well, we do this because we need to, Bloom, and we do it for you. So if you're out there with me, I want you to scream it to the heavens. Cue the chat D. Bloom, week 8 shutdowns.
Yeah, nice grab on the shock absorbed arm there. You got to tune in to see, folks. And again, this has a little more nuance now. I'm trying to be and always give me feedback, folks, of how I can help you more with the waiver wire up down column. Because let's see. I'll just do this. The true shut them downs, where you're dropping these guys. It doesn't even matter for who. Drop them for Bailey Zappi. I don't care. Matt Ryan. And Ryan Tannehill's been one of the worst fantasy quarterbacks anyway. I'm not waiting around for his ankle to get better. Kenny Pickett. Yeah, Kenny Pickett. I mean, maybe if there's some easier matchups coming, but I think he is what he is at this point. And I get it. They're going to let him play through it, I guess, but I think his limitations are there. Looking at running backs, and I said, and I got to take, I never do this, Cease. I never do this, but I'm going to do it right now. Because I said for Breece Hall, we talked about the Viking funeral. The folks it almost could be a good segment, right? Cease, we could add a third segment to the end. Who gets a Viking funeral this week? Who do we send out to sea on the flaming boat with all of the offerings? When I say drop, because there was some negative feedback about that. I think people thought that I was making light of Breece Hall's injury. And hopefully if people know me, they know I wouldn't do that. I was to honor him.
What was this on Twitter?
It was actually just some feedback we got at Footballguys. And so if you go to the waiver wire up down report, it's not going to say Viking funeral anymore.
Usually the feedback is just, can Cecil not drink on the show?
See?
Oh,
So I meant,
if you know what's in your heart, you know how you meant it, dude.
yeah. Well, and if that person or people is listening, I was honoring Brees Hall and what he did for fantasy teams, and honoring you for having the wisdom to draft him and have him on your team. And it's just sad. So the Viking funeral, it's just not an unceremonious drop. We want to honor what he could do. Deion Jackson was nice when it lasted. Justice Hill with the fumble. I mean, Kenny and Drake. Gus Edwards gets hurt. Maybe it's something there, but then 11 for 5. I don't think so. Corey Davis. This is going to be a run-heavy offense anyway. I don't know how he might play again this week, but I don't really want to be dabbling in Jets wide receivers this year. Not with the blueprint they're going to have. Not with James Robinson there. Hunter Henry. It was nice for a couple of weeks. Speaking of awakenings, he came back to have some value. That now, and the Patriots offense woke up. Now I'm not really quite sure. It's all very lukewarm in Foxborough.
Well, Bloom, there's the times when you gotta let it go, and then there's the times when you can't let it go. It's too much. It's too emotional. We're all about our emotions. We're in touch with our feelings. At least we try to be, Bloom. So in week 8, who are some of your hold-ons in fantasy football?
Hold on for one more day. Well, it depends, right? And I tried to lay out now at what percentage level of pickup do you drop players. So I'll try to give it some specifics here. Okay. At quarterback, Tom Brady. Like, Cease, would you rather have Tom Brady or Justin Fields? Brady or Daniel Jones? I mean, it's just that simple for me right now. So that's where we're holding on to Tom Brady unless one of those guys are out there. Mac Jones, Jared Goff, probably dropping. So Mac Jones, Jared Goff, or Jimmy Garoppolo.
Sorry, I was chatting in the chat room.
That's fine. Mac Jones. Would you rather have Mac Jones?
I don't like Mac Jones.
Right. Would you rather have Jared Goff or Jimmy Garoppolo? Same initials.
Jimmy, I guess.
Yeah. So again, giving
better
you
talent,
not just percentages, but giving you some ideas within the position. Okay. Running backs. I think that you drop AJ Dillon for Gus Edwards. Otherwise, I'm probably holding on to him because they should get it together. Why isn't this offense running through the backfield? Damian Harris, probably dropping Damian Harris for Dante Foreman, Khalil Herbert, Benjamin. I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know if it was game script. I don't know if they just figured out that Ramondre Stevenson can do more. But I think we've seen Harris's high watermark as a fantasy commodity. Okay, here's another. Cease, I love this. This is going to be like our new segment, right? Cease. Tyler Boyd or Rashad Bateman?
Boyd.
Yeah. So I mean, with Bateman, and you're still subsisting on that 60-yard touchdown with Bateman, and they will come, but now the margin of error gets a lot thinner, right? Likewise, Drake London or Wan'Dale Robinson.
Wan'Dale.
Right. Drake London. And maybe Atlanta's going to have to throw more down the line. Maybe Drake London's going to have some value. How long are we going to wait for that when there's viable pickups on the waiver wire like a Wan'Dale Robinson, a Tyler Boyd? So again, you're dropping them for these top priorities, DJ Moore. Now, Devin Duvernay, a notch below Bateman. I think you're dropping him for, maybe that's the guy you dropped to get Khalil Shakir. It's close. Rondale Moore. He was out there on the field a ton, but he's not going to get receptions as long as DeAndre Hopkins is out there. Robert Woods. It's the Titans. They're not going to throw the ball. So what are we waiting for here? You're trying to get somebody who's going up. A few unconditional holds on. Dak Prescott. It was the Lions. We expected more. Let's see. It might have just been
first week back.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not going to get too hasty there. Like, I'm not dropping Dak to get Daniel Jones or Justin Fields. I might wish I had. Kyle Pitts. Oh, what do we do with Kyle Pitts? He did get an end zone target and they pass interference, so it was there. But what it would have done for you? Oh, you would have had a 10-point week or 11-point week, 12-point week. Is that going to really change your destiny? Again, Atlanta could throw the ball more going forward, but I'm not just spite dropping him. I might sabotage drop him, and I'm going to give a nod to our friend Paul Charchin and say, remember this, a sabotage drop is only a sabotage drop when you drop them before the waiver wire run and as early as possible before the waiver wire run. So somebody spends a lot of their bucks on him. Don't do the literal drop Kyle Pitts for Irv Smith or something like that. Drop him now. Drop him while you're listening to this right now so that somebody has to spend a lot of money to get him. That's the true sabotage drop. So I'm okay with that. Otherwise, I'm probably only dropping Kyle Pitts for, again, a Gus Edwards. If you need help at quarterback, a Jones or a Fields, you might still be able to trade Kyle Pitts. And who knows, they could eventually figure this out. Arthur Smith could figure this out. But Arthur Blank, unlike Jim Irsay, Whiskey Burps is a good name for a fantasy team, by the way. So we'll see. And then an unconditional hold, I think, is Zach Ertz. I know that things dropped off with Zach Ertz with DeAndre Hopkins back this week. Remember, Arizona controlled the game. How many games are they going to control? In a game where they're passing more in the second half, Zach Ertz could still be just fine.
Yeah, just fine. That's what we are here for you. We're just fine. And Bloom, you care so much about everybody. You care a lot, and I appreciate you. Because before the show, off air, I'll tell a little tale. Like, I'm just trying to wake up. That's why I had a cup of coffee and a cold nitro brew during the show.
Oh.
And you're like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I'm barely here.
Yeah, we're a little more here now.
Yeah. I am Cornholio.
Do the kids even know about Beavis and Butthead anymore?
Yeah, they had a new what was that, Amazon movie? Whatever.
They did.
Yeah, they like went to space. Spoiler alert. Anyway.
When you watch the old episodes, they don't have them. I don't think they got rights to the music videos because that was all of it. That was all of it. Like they loved the Bee Gees. They loved jive talking. It was like one of the Fish was on Beavis and Butthead once. Fish actually had a video for one of their songs. It was actually
Fish had a video.
I know. See, this is all the stuff that's not there anymore because they don't have the music videos. They loved Ween. Remember Beavis, push a little daisy, make them come up, push a little daisy, make them come. Don't look up what that song is about.
And that's a way to end the show. It is the Audible. Everyone, thanks. Do all the YouTube things. I know it's annoying. And if you've chatted in the chat room, put a comment down below, please, because the chat room comments don't count for the YouTube algorithm. And woo, hey, everybody, we're jumping through hoops for YouTube and our YouTube overlords. Damn you. Anyway, we love you guys. We appreciate you. And thank you very much for like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid, and check out footballguys.com for all of your fantasy football information. He is Sigmund. I am Cecil. We are the Audible. Everyone out there, stay tuned, and I command that you stay frosty.